Good morning, GraceHill. On Sunday there was so much meat in what was preached, and there's been a lot of points raised. And the thing that struck me was how, and we've seen this in our devotionals and in our studying of Matthew and of Mark now, and Jason touched on it in John chapter 1, where Jesus called his disciples, and he called, Brenna touched on this, he called normal, everyday people that maybe were not from the elite, the fishermen, the tax collectors. Brenna spoke on that in her devotional. And what struck me was that when calling these fishermen, they were busy doing their businesses, but they dropped everything, because every chapter where we read about this, where Jesus calls his disciples, it says at once they left their boats and followed Jesus. So that was the amazing thing, that Jesus had such authority that these fishermen were impelled to follow him. Then the next thing that struck me was how in Mark chapter 3, where it says here, Jesus went up into the hills and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12, designating them apostles, that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. Now, Jason touched on one of them, Simon, Cephas. He was called Cephas, which means the rock on which the Church of Christ was built. He called James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. So there was a family scenario to which he gave the name Sons of Thunder. I'd love to know what they did to get that name. And there were a whole lot of others amongst Judas Iscariot. But what struck me here was that the reason that he went up into the hills to pray, and he calls his disciples with him, so that they might be with him. So Jesus' main goal is to have us with him. How are we with him? How can we be with Jesus if we are in exile here? Simply by spending time with him in his word, getting to know him, and time in prayer. And the second point is that he might send them out to preach and to have authority to drive out demons. So Jesus' main goal was that his word would spread. He does that through the church, through us as individual people within the church. And Jason touched on that, is how we reach people. Some of them we invite to church. Others we pray for God's intervention into their lives, that they would come to know Christ. So we can't mold people to be who they are not. So I encourage us each to play the role in church that God has ordained for us to do. Let us be instruments of his peace. Let us be instruments of spreading the word of Christ to grow the church. Not for our own selfish ambition, but for his glory alone. That they would come to know Christ, come to be part of the bigger family of Christ, and grow within their own faith. So that's my take on the sermon on Sunday, that we each have a different role. Let's play our roles together. Pray that you have a wonderful week.